Good morning. Today, as we're reading through this Bible, we're going to look at 1 Samuel 19 and 20. And yesterday, during the battle, when Absalom was trying to take over the kingship, to have a mutiny against his father David, in the battle that ensued, we saw that Absalom had been killed. Even though David had basically ordered almost that he not be killed, that he would be spared. And then David is weeping and mourning for his son. And it comes to the attention of Joab as we start chapter 19. And Joab is the commander of the king's army. And he had the audacity, he had the boldness, the courage to come to David and say to him, I understand that you're weeping and mourning for the death of your son. However, you are showing to the soldiers and everything, that you don't appreciate them. The soldiers had been fighting for King David against Absalom. And then in the battle, they're successful, victorious. And then it's just like David is definitely not pleased. So Joab calls him out on that. So then, verse 8 says, the king got up and took his seat at the gate, and the troops were all told, see, the king is sitting at the gate. And, so he took his place on the throne again and began to act, more like the king. However, this was one of the, maybe one of the catalysts, one of the starting points for the division again between Judah and Israel, the southern and northern kingdom. And David was upset with Joab for some things here. So in verse 11, King David sends a message, to these different people and stuff. And then he says to Amasa, are you not bone of my bone? And so may God do me if you are not the commander of my army from now on, in place of Joab. So Joab's honesty, his courage to be able to come and tell David, you're not acting like a king that's happy your army defeated the enemy, even though the enemy was your son. So David tries to, takes Joab out of the command of the army. And it says, verse 14, Amasa swayed the hearts of all the people of Judah, and they sent word to the king, that way, return to Judah. And, David had made the center of his kingdom in Jerusalem, which is not in Judah. So he begins to move his headquarters then back to Judah, and so as a result of the battle against his son Absalom, the division, as I just mentioned, starts to get more defined again. And so the Israelites, aren't we 10 tribes? Why are you favoring the one tribe? Because they were, out of the 12 tribes of Israel, the Levites didn't have land per se, but so the 10 tribes of Israel were upset with the one tribe of Judah, thinking it was better than them. Some of this, just jealousies. We see it so often, and in our lives today, we see that, so often in different things. And so the friction comes. The true and official split between the northern and southern kingdom doesn't happen for quite a few years yet, and not until, I think it's probably even after Solomon's reign as king. But the animosity is there, and it's starting to build. The jealousies are there. And then in verse 24, we come back to Mephibosheth. I stumbled over his name. Saul's grandson, anyway. Saul's grandson, Jonathan's son, who is crippled and who David has, promised and pledged all of Saul's land and holdings to, and how Ziba was this Mephibosheth's the caretaker, the one that was in charge and everything. But Ziba had come to David, and told him that Mephibosheth was against him, whatever. So David had, listened, of course, shouldn't have, and had pledged the land to Ziba, the servant of this Mephibosheth. And so then, but then the reality comes that Mephibosheth was not against David, but he had been deceived by his servant Ziba. So in a state of confusion, of not knowing what to do, David kind of divides the land between Ziba and Mephibosheth. And, where it should all have been, still remained as to Mephibosheth. But, David had given his word to Ziba, but, Ziba was, guilty of, deceit and telling a lie and everything. But, it's a little bit of indecision, not clear, not clear probably, and exactly, the right thing to do. And but how many of us sometimes have struggles doing the right thing to do? It's often easier to go along with the crowd or to, kind of just look the other way sometimes. And then in verse 31, as another name comes in, the Barzillai, the Gileadite, who had come down, went with the king to Jordan to escort him. And he was an old man, 80 years old, and, there's, talking there with him. But it's, I don't know, it's a little bit not real clear to me what's going on there. But through all of it, the David's reign as king now is strained, and the battles that are coming, and with putting Amasa in charge of the army instead of Joab, and with the son Absalom, and just troubles are there. And so then verse 20, we find another rebellion coming up by a man named Sheba, the son of Berchi, a Benjaminite. And he's, we have no portion in David, son of Jesse, O Israel. So he's of the northern tribes, and he's stirring the northern tribes up against King David. And so then it says, so all the people of Israel withdrew from David and followed Sheba, but the people of Judah followed David, their king. So again, this division, this animosity between Israel, the northern kingdom, and Judah, the southern kingdom. So David came back to Jerusalem and was there. And then he says to Amasa, who he's now got as the king, the leader of the army, to call the men of Judah together and go do battle. And when they were coming, Amasa came out to meet him, and Joab was there. And as Amasa, this new commander, comes up to Joab, the former commander, Joab pulls a knife and kills him. And then the men again begin to follow Joab. So then again, Joab is now the commander of the army. And it's just crazy stuff going on. And then they come, they're pursuing these rebels, Sheba and everyone else, Sheba the leader of it, and they come to this town, and where he's holed up, he says, and they're going to attack the town, and this wise woman there says, I want to talk to Joab, and so she said, I am one who is faithful and peaceful. And so then Joab says, well, no, okay, I won't destroy you, but I want to head, but they kill Sheba, this one who's starting the uprising, and it says, Joab has asked for his head, and so they kill him and pull off the plan. And So the trumpet blows and they disperse and they go back home. So there is temporarily peace in Israel and Judah under the reign of King David. It's just, but it's so much like life today in the world. You know, there's always something going on. There's always someone who's discontent. There's always someone willing to stir up, you know, contentions. And I mean, the two churches I'm serving right now, are, they're small. The members get along, and it is so nice, to, not have, people trying to, undergird each other, but to work together. And it would be so great if all of the people in the world could somehow come to the point of working together. But, as we read the story of the Israelites, a small nation, compared to all the people in the world, Israel is a small nation and a small number of people. But yet the troubles that they have, the inability to get along, even to come together under a king like David, and as we read later on, we're gonna with Solomon as well. But just there's continued strife in the world, and why? Because of the devil. The devil is just he's the antagonist and just stirring stuff up. Yeah, so I give thanks to God for the good things in the world. And I know there's a lot of bad, and I pray for the areas of the world that are war-torn and for people that are impacted by that. But also just to think about how do we come to this point of being able to work together for the good of all, rather than like Judah, come back. Judah said, come back and make your palace, your kingdom, your capital here, So there are troublemakers all the time, but we need to be peacekeepers. That's what Jesus would have, to have us be peacekeepers.